Thanks for watching this CDU video.
When we return, how faith and reason fit together in the Catholic theological tradition.
The church father Tertullian once asked, "What does Athens have to do with Jerusalem?" Now there's a lot to learn from Tertullian, to be sure, but he would have given the wrong answer to his question. He thought Athens should have nothing at all to do with Jerusalem. What in the world was he getting at? Well, to illustrate the issue, I will be Athens. I am the home base of the learning and knowledge of men. More than that, I represent philosophy, human wisdom, the mind of man contemplating the world around him, asking questions like Socrates, imagining an ideal world like Plato, trying to scientifically categorize visible reality like Aristotle, and just seeking the truth of things like man does naturally.
And I am Jerusalem. I am the home base of the people of God, Israel. But more than that, I glory in the Holy Scriptures and the words and deeds by which Israel's God has revealed himself, the God of Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob, the God whose ways are utterly above our ways, whose thoughts are utterly above our thoughts, the God who created the heavens and the earth, who created man in his image, who redeemed his people from slavery in Egypt, and who revealed himself definitively in Jesus Christ, his only Son, in his incarnation, ministry of teaching and healing, his death and resurrection. That's what I represent.
So what do I have to do with Jerusalem?
And what do I have to do with Athens?
Well, until this new religion called Christianity started spreading into my home territory, we had very little to do with each other.
I didn't know her very well at all. I mean, I knew a little bit about Athens, but mostly just cultural things like insipid columns everywhere in buildings and on streets, gymnasiums for guys to run around naked in, and a lot of arrogant blasphemy. The kind that would have inspired someone to put a statue of the fake god Zeus in the temple. Yeah, that went over real well. Not.
We barely knew each other at all.
Once we learned more about the Greeks, and we could get past their arrogance and their crazy ideas about demiurges and unknown gods, there really were a lot of valuable insights in their finest thinkers. Not only did the later books in the Old Testament incorporate some Greek wisdom, but St. Paul and St. John especially borrowed heavily from Greek philosophical and cultural concepts.
I knew a little bit about Jerusalem, but mostly just noticing that quote-unquote God-fearers would hang around synagogues every Saturday, listening in funny-sounding Greek to myths and fables that purported to be wisdom from on high. Yeah, talking donkeys and men getting devoured and then vomited out by giant fish. Real wise. Not. But once the gospel spread, and once you could get past St. Paul's Jewish-sounding Greek and the seemingly pedestrian stories about Jesus in the Gospels, you see that there's a great deal of wisdom there. And by seeing that Jesus Christ is the Logos of God, he's really the thing that Plato was looking for all along. We still don't always see eye to eye. She still believes things that are kind of nutty.
I don't particularly care for that toga thing she's sporting.
Excuse me, but this is not a toga. That's Roman. This is a Greek stola, Jerusalem, a stola. And I think I look like a smashing Greek goddess in it.
Anyway, we need each other. At first, Athens was a huge problem for me because of that whole weird idea of secret Gnostic knowledge that she was so obsessed with.
I try to learn whatever I can.
And she had too low a view of the material world, the human body, and so forth. Docetism, you know. But once we got over the hump of those things, I found I really needed her. I needed her to come up with a language to explain how God could be three and one at the same time. Homoousios and hypostasis. All these were terms I borrowed.
Terms you actually stole.
Terms I borrowed with permission from Athens to come up with a sure way of protecting what the Bible was saying about the relationship between God the Father and Jesus Christ, his Son. And then there was the really difficult issue of explaining how Jesus Christ could be both God and man, one hypostasis in two natures. Again, I needed Athens' help to come up with a way of talking about this that would safeguard the fullness of what the Bible was saying about how Jesus was both God and man.
Don't forget about St. Augustine.
Yes, it's true. Augustine borrowed insights both from the Bible and Greek philosophy to develop a Christian anthropology. The human person is by nature a body and soul, and into this nature God pours his own life, which we call supernatural grace. The relationship of human nature to God's grace is the basis for an enormous portion of theological discussion in the following centuries.
And Thomas Aquinas.
Yes, Aquinas wanted to show that Christianity was a reasonable religion, or at least not an unreasonable one. So who better to consult than the greatest scientist and philosopher of antiquity, Aristotle? Aquinas taught that sacraments consisted of matter and form, and that at Mass the species of bread and wine change substance but retain their accidental qualities. You know, transubstantiation.
That term was derived from Aristotle.
Yep, and Thomas's moral theology was based in part on Aristotle's idea of the human being as having an intellect and a will, and using that intellect and will to seek perfection and happiness according to his nature. Very Aristotelian. How did Thomas deduce that every angel was his own separate species? Because he has no material accidents that individuate him. See Aristotle on genus, species, and individual. And in his 5 famous ways to demonstrate the existence of God, Aquinas acknowledged a great debt to Aristotle for this.
What about William of Ockham?
Don't make me wretch. You mean he who shall remain nameless?
And in the modern age, Descartes, Kant, Hegel, and so on.
Well, they've influenced theology too, in some ways good and some ways bad. There's many other names you could have mentioned. But what about you, Athens?
Well, as much as I hate to admit it, I kind of need you too, Jerusalem. Even my very best and smartest people are only so good and only so smart. The very best ones, like Socrates, Aristotle, and Plato, could only figure stuff out after a very long, hard time thinking, and still making a lot of mistakes along the way. And so many awesome mysteries of grace: the incarnation of God, the cross of Jesus Christ, the resurrection of the body. No one, not even the smartest and wisest, could possibly have figured out these sublime mysteries on their own.
No one could have. I need you, Athens, just like you need me, because faith and reason must go together.
Because faith and reason must go together.
Because
faith and reason must go together. Welcome to the course. Kairete.
Welcome to the course. Shalom.